You ever have one of those mornings where the whole world asks you to choose between being a good person and keeping your future? Yeah, that was my Tuesday. I missed a final to pull a stranger out of the street, and 3 days later a helicopter landed in my apartment courtyard. No, really. Listen, my name is Maya Carter. I'm 19, nursing major at Ridgewell University. Top of my class scholarship, paying most of my tuition, lived with my roommate Tasha in a tiny second-floor walk-up that smelled like instant noodles half the time. My mom died when I was 9 because she was scared of medical bills. She waited until a fever turned into something it shouldn't have, and by then it was too late. That funeral made me swear plain and simple I'm going to be a nurse so nobody else will be left to die because they couldn't afford care. That's the promise that pushed me through nights on call, 2 jobs, and finals that felt designed to suck the soul out of you. So, the morning of this big exam, my alarm screamed at 7:20. Nursing 410 starts at 8 hurry, no late entry, plastered on the syllabus like a threat. I had yesterday's scrubs on. Laundry was a luxury that week. Photos of Mom leaned against a stack of unpaid bills on my desk, and I was running coffee-forgotten heart in my throat. 2 blocks from the bus stop, I see her. White coat soaked with blood face against the pharmacy window like somebody had thrown her away. People walking by like it was a Saturday ad, phones out, heads down. I stopped because what else could I do? "Ma'am." I dropped my bag, knelt, checked pulse. Weak pupils, unequal skin cold. "Can you hear me?" She blinked, mumbled something that sounded like a name like June or Evelyn. Didn't matter. I call 911, compress the wound. Keep her airway open, hold her hand, whisper nonsense that nurses whisper when they don't want someone to go. The bus pulls away 20 feet behind me with its doors shut. The exam starts at 8. The ambulance takes 8 minutes. 8 minutes can be an eternity for a brain bleed. I keep pressure on the wound until the paramedics pull up and say plain as daylight, "If you hadn't kept that pressure, we would have been calling it." They put her on a stretcher and someone snaps a quick video because, of course they do. I walk back to campus with dried blood on my hands and a mixture of adrenaline and numbness humming through me, and my phone explodes. Texts, "Where are you? Did you get to the exam?" My professor's assistant knocks. "Late entry, not permitted." I knock, the door opens, and Dean Lorraine Briggs is sitting at the front like a judge, shoulders pinned in a suit that costs more than my rent. She looks at me, at the scrubs, at the blood, and checks her watch. "Miss Carter, the exam began at 8. Late entry policy is firm. You will receive a 0. But there was an emergency. I called 911. I performed CPR. I kept her alive." I said, my voice small, the words falling out like coins. "Choices have consequences," Dean Briggs said, and then she said the words that hollowed me out. "Policy is policy. Your scholarship will be revoked for failure to meet the GPA requirement. You have 48 hours to appeal." Think about that. You either sit for a test, keep your scholarship, and sleep safe knowing your future's intact, or you stop and keep a human heart beating and possibly lose everything. My hands shook as I left, and the scholarship, the one that paid half my tuition, vanished in an email. I had $320 in my account, rent 2 weeks overdue, and a pile of bills that made me dizzy. Tasha cried in the hallway, and for the first time since Mom's funeral, the promise I made felt like it might drown me. Now, here's where the story could have ended. Me signing an NDA, taking a makeup test, swallowing everything, and slipping quietly out of the spotlight. Ridgewell tried that route. They called, offered a makeup under strict conditions, sign this non-disclosure, don't speak to media, accept the decision as final, and maybe if you pass, we'll consider reinstatement. Quiet, bury it, move on. But I couldn't do that. And not just because pride was involved, but because the thing that had hurt the worst wasn't the 0. It was the way Dean Briggs tossed my record like trash, and the way the school's rules seemed to be written in invisible ink for some students and in steel for others. A small news clip, a viral repost, and suddenly my face was on screens. People called me a hero, strangers sent tips and messages, but others called me reckless, and then the call came. "Maya Carter, this is James Holden, attorney. The person on the line said the woman you saved wants to meet you. I looked out the window and couldn't believe what I saw. A black helicopter thumping down into the courtyard rotor wash, kicking up the city's trash, a woman with a bandaged head and an expensive coat, stepping out like she owned the sky. Her name was Evelyn March, and she wasn't interested in sympathy. She was angry. "Someone left me to die," she told me when we met, voice low, scar visible where blood had been drained. "You stopped. Then I found out what your school did." She told me she had resources, a foundation, and a temper. "I didn't want charity," she said. "I want justice. If you had to choose between a grade and a life, then they need to know that choice is a bad test of character." She hired a lawyer, James Holden, who smelled like courtrooms and consequence. They dug. They didn't just look at my file, they pulled 5 years of cases about emergency accommodations, denial memos, emails, where faculty joked about setting an example. And they found a pattern: emergency requests denied disproportionately for students of color, informal makeups quietly arranged for others. Numbers and names, audio clips of meetings where someone said, "We can't set a precedent." The more we found, the angrier I felt. Not because the world had noticed me now, but because the people I represented, the countless quiet kids who risked things and were punished, had been invisible for so long. Ridgewell didn't like being shown the mirror. They called in donors, they threatened legal fights, and they whispered about precedent and institutional integrity. Dean Briggs sat in camera interviews with the exact rehearsed phrasing. Policy was applied equally. Except it wasn't. When Evelyn went public, when James released the report, the university's inbox filled with stories. Students who missed finals because of a family emergency and were denied, students who lost internships after a bus crash, students who were punished for doing the right thing. The public pressure shifted the room. A board meeting, a suspended dean, a viral hashtag, and suddenly Ridgewell was offering more than a makeup. They were announcing an independent review, reinstating my scholarship with back pay, and promising policy changes. In a packed hearing where cameras hummed like insects, I watched Evelyn stand up and say simply, "Kindness should not cost a future." The room reeled. Students brought stories, professors testified, and I, who had only wanted to be a nurse, found myself speaking into microphones for something bigger than me. We won steps that mattered. My scholarship was reinstated. Dean Briggs was put on leave. The school agreed to overhaul how emergency absences were handled, and Evelyn started a compassion fund to support students who were penalized for doing the right thing. Scholarships Legal Aid, a hotline. But don't get comfortable thinking this was a tidy, feel-good ending. It's complicated. The kind of change that sticks doesn't always come from a headline or a check. We made noise loud enough to force an institution to act, but real change takes time, vigilance, and people willing to keep pushing when the cameras turn off. After the dust, I went back to clinical's badge clipped to my scrub pocket, and there were days I still wondered if it was worth the storm. Then I'd see a patient clutching my hand or a young student in the cafeteria who said, "I saw you on TV, you gave me hope." That kept me going. Ridgewell's new policy allowed reasonable accommodation for documented emergencies, and other schools started talking about similar reforms. A ripple that began with one decision to stop when the world kept walking. This isn't a tale about a helicopter or a rich benefactor saving the day. It's about the system that lets some choices have a price tag and how people pushed back. It's about a young woman who couldn't afford to pay for her mother's care and chose to prevent someone else from paying that same price. It's about the quiet ways institutions protect power and the noisy ways ordinary people make them change. So, what do you think? Was Ridgewell right to insist on rules, or was this a moral test that had the wrong answers written in the syllabus? Is it fair to expect students to prioritize grades over human life? Have you ever seen someone punished for doing the right thing, or rewarded for turning away? Drop a comment. Tell me your story. Argue with me. Call me naive. I want to hear it all. If this moved you, share the video, subscribe for more stories like this, and tell me, what would you have done if you were in my shoes?